I have a very, very high bar about respect, credibility, and integrity, where it physically repulses me about what I've seen happen to the profession I'm involved in because of media. If someone passes out, they're going to die.
Welcome back to the Backcountry Manifesto podcast. I'm your buddy out west, Hayden Samak, and today on the show we are talking to Cody Lundin, the proprietor of the Aboriginal Living Skills School. That's down in, is that in Prescott, Arizona? It is in
Prescott, yeah.
You are the host of the Survival Show with Cody Lundin. People can find that on the web. You are host of the soon-to-be or already here Keep Your Ass Alive podcast, where you talk to all sorts of people about all sorts of survival things. And it's like gritty, like honest survival. It's not like the glam.
No.
So that's you in a nutshell. Explain, tell me more about Cody Lundin, man. Like, you know, I know that history of you, but I don't know the history of you. You know what I mean? I'm
an only kid. That explains a lot, probably. I had a military upbringing, so we moved a lot. So one of the main common events in my world was nature, you know, because if I had to leave these friends, at least I had nature where I was heading to. So I spent a lot of time outside, and I had parents that were also involved in the outdoors. I mean, they were taking me camping, canoeing in the boundary waters, et cetera, et cetera. So I've always been fascinated in doing more with less. And even though we were getting wasted on everything we could put in our body in high school in Wyoming, we were out in some gorgeous wilderness. So I always have flashbacks, sometimes literally, sometimes metaphorically, when I come to like Bozeman, because it's like Wyoming, right? It's they're two peas in a pod. And we were out catching brook trout with maybe just a piece of fishing line and nothing else, but with the Schmidt 24 pack in the backpack. That was a priority load, believe me, right? Oh. So I started out catching or collecting roadkill. I've not related to Jeffrey Dahmer because I heard he did that too. So thankfully, like you in Bozeman, being at a really mutable age of low teens, being in such a rural mountain Wyoming town, we were always outdoors. We were always trying to rig something or pick something dead up and take the feathers out and make something. And that just never left, right? I was always interested in how Native peoples did all this stuff. You know, how'd they do all this stuff? And without these shops and things that we take for granted now. And then that progressed when I was in Prescott, Arizona. I started my Aboriginal Living Skills School in 1991. And I just finished my 34th year teaching. And there's a bunch of summer camps in Prescott, Arizona, because it's a mountain town. So lots of people from Phoenix send their kids up to Prescott to go to the YMCA or whatever in the woods. And I sent out like 15 to 20 letters way back in the day. Hi, I'm Cody, and I can teach your campers survival skills and primitive skills. And I didn't get one answer. No one gave a shit about that. So I had a girlfriend at the time that knew a graphic designer out of San Francisco, and she made me something called a flyer. Have you familiar with that?
I am.
It was on something called paper.
Yep. I was in something called a band, and we put on a lot of those on something called a telephone pole. Yeah.
And phone booths.
Yeah. Well, not phone booths.
Okay. Now there's a generation gap there. I put mine on
telephone related, but yeah.
Phone booths.
Okay.
Back when they had this, there was a thing where you'd drop a quarter and you'd make a phone call, right? And so that's how I started my business and I thought I was really going to get a lot of clients when I switched to color paper. Color paper. Yeah. It was like 3 cents more for the sheet. So it was a big deal. That's how naive I was, but that's how I started my school. Gently, honestly, slowly, building skill at the time. There was no social media. I couldn't appear like an expert in a weekend of lying with a bunch of posts and photographs that were now AI produced or whatever. And that slowly built up into a school, which I have to this day. And I'm so grateful I have that opportunity to, my mailing list used to be done on a notepad with a ballpoint pen. Mail. Remember, okay, not I'm a male, you're a male. Yeah. But this was male with little people would come in a truck and take this thing called a letter with a stamp. Uh-huh. And then they would send it through and then someone that gave a shit would get this thing and then open it up because they cared about your school enough to be on your mailing list that had 25 people on it. Look at how different that is from today when I can be an online expert in a few weekends. I'm so grateful that I had that slow burn time to get the experience that now my clients would depend on. Dude, that's how I started. My school was old school like that.
So tell me about your school and what kind of stuff do you guys do there?
I teach primitive living skills, making fire with sticks.
Where is this?
This is all around Prescott, Arizona. Okay. Yavapai County. Yavapai County is big in the state of Rhode Island, New Jersey, etc. The counties are huge in Arizona. I don't know how they here in Montana. Primitive living skills, modern outdoor survival skills, what happens when the Jeep breaks down, and urban preparedness. My first book, 98.6 Degrees, The Art of Keeping Your Ass Alive, was about modern outdoor survival, the day hike gone bad. And then the latter half of that book is the survival kit that I carry in desert mountain regions. 2003 is when that was published. My second book, published in 2007, When All Hell Breaks Loose, Stuff You Need to Survive When Disaster Strikes, is more urban preparedness. There's a chapter on, water and shelter, hygiene, sanitation, communications, what would happen in the studio if the grid went down, and how to deal with that. My homestead's off-grid. I live in a passive solar earth home underground that heats and cools itself. No moving parts. I have photovoltaics for power, but my house heats and cools itself. Thermoregulation is everything. The two biggest causes of death in the backcountry are hypothermia, a drop in Hayden's core body temperature of 98.6 to lower, and hyperthermia, the desert survival situation where Hayden's core goes above 98.6. So regulating temperature is key to staying alive in an outdoor survival situation. So I designed my house to regulate its own temperature. I have no grid. I am the grid.
So you're the one who knocks.
Right. I have no moving parts to regulate temperature because I took a course at a college on thermodynamics and passed solar design and learned a ton because all this stuff has been engineered out. So how high my ceiling was, how many windows I have per square foot for the incoming solar radiation from my latitude in Prescott, all that's been dialed in by scientists. And I put all those facts, the physics of that, into a house I built with friends, me helping them. And the first time I walked into my earth home, it was blowing snow. You know the type. It's blowing, so it's snowing horizontally. And it was colder than hell because it snows in Arizona where I am. And I walked into my home after I put all the windows in finally, because I used to have birds nesting. The bats would come in because it looks like the bat caves, and I would have all these fucking dead insects in my bedroom because the bats would fly in. So windows. I had windows on my house. I walked in for the first time in the winter, and it was room temperature. In the middle of nowhere, off-grid, no power, no nothing. And I almost snored like that. I almost started crying because all that hard work and all that training and all that building trying to design with nature, it worked. So I have a house. I don't need to burn wood. I don't need to do anything. And it's nice and toasty during the wintertime, and it's cool in the summertime because I paid attention to nature and designed. So I've been into self-reliance. You can tell it's not just a job for me, it's a lifestyle for me. And I try to dial everything in to path of least resistance and the what ifs. And it's not a paranoia thing. I get off on it. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to be confident and feel strong and self-reliant and prepared where everyone else, their heads are spinning. And, I'm not saying I'll be fine, but that's how this all started, was a real desire to do more with less, to wonder how indigenous peoples did what they did, full-time, no going into the big box store, and then wanting to share that knowledge with others so they could be free. I'm way into freedom. I don't like people telling me what to do. You can tell I'm not a real rule guy. You can probably tell by looking at me. And to feel the freedom of being self-reliant, whether in town or country, the confidence, and I'm not saying cocky. Cocky people die in my profession. It's just really cool to know what makes someone twitch if you pull a string. Because right now, a lot of people are just off balance because they're tied to a grid. Someone messes with the grid, someone's dreaming.
Well, he's got his nose pushed up against your thighs.
Was
he's like
I
choking.
suffocating you?
So what do you do at your school, man?
What do I do at my school? I teach self-reliance, dude.
Yeah, like what? Like, give me like an example. So I go, hey, Cody, I would like to take a class. Am I going to take a group class? Am I taking a one-on-one
So
thing?
I teach modern outdoor survival skills. I'd ask you is what you want, and you're probably not going to know, which is common. So I'm going to tell you what the different courses. This one's modern survival. Do you go camping a lot? If there's a Jeep breakdown, then maybe you should take the staying alive class. We deal with fire, settling for rescue, water, and shelter, how search and rescue works, etc. Some people might be literally a practicing archaeologist or anthropologist, and they want to know more about primitive skills. Great. We make stone knives in this class. We make cordage out of plants. We make fire with sticks. Hey, I'm worried about my house being off grid. Okay, let's do this urban preparedness course. Here's how we're going to improvise a toilet. Here's where to poop in your backyard. Here's the food to store and how to store it. So the 3 families of self-reliance, modern outdoor survival, primitive living skills, and urban preparedness, that's what I do in my Aboriginal Living Skills School.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw you like, okay, here's like a vague situation, right? You're going to want more context, and I'll give it to you. And then maybe we can alter the context and see like how that survival situation might be different. And in that way, illustrate a lot of like the nuance. Would that be cool?
Shoot.
Okay, cool. Let's start with something that is, we're going to get increasingly more backcountry, but like, let's start with getting to the backcountry. We're driving to somewhere like Joshua Tree, and assume that this is not Joshua Tree, because the answer then would be like, well, you just wait 20 seconds until the person behind you catches up and they'll probably help you out.
You've been there.
Let's talk about like, somewhere like that though, like maybe like a high desert. It doesn't need to be high desert. It could just be like desert, right? You break down and it is not something that is a matter of getting an extra gas can, or, patching a tire. Your axle is broke. You are not going anywhere. You don't have service. And to the best of your knowledge, it's getting dark. It's summertime, but it's getting dark in the, high desert or medium high desert. So things are going to happen there. And you do not have a reasonable expectation that somebody is coming. You were also going to go to some hip glamping Airbnb, so you don't have a bunch of tent and sleeping bags and things of that nature. You're pretty spare. Maybe you have climbing gear and your clothing, like so changes of clothes. You're reasonably competent, so you have layers that are like, that make sense for what you're doing. Is that like pretty specific?
What time of year?
It's October.
Okay.
It's October. So it's not like crazy scorching hot in the day. It's not like icy cold at night. So it's like,
The drive to my house is 35 miles of dirt road one way.
Okay.
In high desert.
So you're going to visit Cody.
So you're not going to be in my Jeep, because my Jeep is loaded with stuff for that breakdown, like we're talking about.
You're in a rental car. So there's like nothing.
There we go. There's nothing. Again, you've given me some good context with that. Someone in this situation, pretty common. I found several people in this situation on that road with flat tires or whatever. Really, regulating core body temperature is number one. Hypothermia, drop in core body temperature, hyperthermia too high. It can happen both, because you mentioned high desert, you mentioned October. So the nights are getting, I'm going to fly back to high desert today. Nights are getting cooler, days can still be hotter. So that's still a concern. So regulating core body temperature, you mentioned this person has several layers of clothes.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to regulate body temperature is to put on and off clothes. You have the vehicle as a shelter as well. Now, vehicles as shelters in hot desert survival turn into ovens. You might be under the vehicle if it was like 110 degrees in the Sonoran Desert in June. In this case, no. So, I mean, how many rental cars have I slept in because I was too much of a cheap ass to get a hotel room. So other than water, we didn't talk about water, if this person has any water. The main concern is regulating body temperature. This person
doesn't have water. This person got a cheeseburger on the way to where they were going, and they have like, when you get a soda and you have like some really like shittily flavored ice at the bottom of it. They have about a half a cup of ice, and it is, I guess maybe it's melting, maybe it's not. I didn't tell you when it broke down. Is it mostly
ice?
Yeah, it's ice.
Okay, you're going to drink that because that's water. It's not dehydrating like pop would be with loads of sugar.
You wouldn't drink, if you had a Coca-Cola, you wouldn't drink the Coca-Cola? I know you wouldn't drink the piss.
No, pop is dehydrating. Caffeine is dehydrating. I mean, sugar is, I'm not saying I would not drink that, but that would not be in a good situation. Assuming someone's dehydrated like they usually are walking around, how can you tell? The color of your pee. If your color of your pee is yellow or straw yellow, the body, when it's fully hydrated, the pee is going to be clear. And it's hard to get it that way. So assuming this person's already dehydrated, which they probably are, I'm not going to want them to move around a lot. There was a case study of a guy who got broke down as in physical injured someplace in Death Valley. And all day long, he was in the shade of this boulder, and his chore was to just move his broken body to stay in the shade of that boulder all day long as the sun shifted and the shadow shifted. So I wouldn't want to do a whole lot. I'd want to stay with the vehicle because I'm on a road. If you're coming to Cody's place, someone else is going to be down that road eventually. I'm going to regulate body temperature using the clothing in that vehicle. I'm not going to do dumb shit and try to walk up and down the road. Would I walk back if I was down the road 2 or 3 miles? Of course I would, right? We didn't get into that context, right? But we assume no one's coming.
He doesn't know when this road is going to end. Like, for all he knows, it was 60 miles since the last town, and it could be another 60 to
so
where
he's staying put. But you're given a scenario where, left unchecked, if a person doesn't know the environment, the only gear they have is what they got. And that's a car and some clothes and some half-melted ice. I'm not going to be able to pull a rabbit out of my ass and say, here, just do this.
Yeah.
That person's going to stay put for search and rescue. Ideally, they told Martha where they were going, to Cody's. So if Martha, I'll check in when I'm at Cody's, right? Because of this thing called a cell phone. They're not going to have any signal if they're coming to see me. And they're going to stay put. They're going to regulate core body temperature. They're going to stay as hydrated as they can, and they're going to stay around that vehicle because they almost always find the vehicle before they find the dead guy. People that leave the vehicle, they find the vehicle, then they find the dead guy because vehicles are easier to spot. What I would do with that rental car, I'd put up the hood, right? Make it look like it's in distress. Make it as visible as possible and flag someone down and be prepared when someone does come down that road to have them flagged down. And if you're not walking and you're staying put, that's my recommendation. You're not going to go make a bowstring out of bark and go hunt. It's just like staying put, chilling out, not getting all worked up about it, managing your body resources for what they are, not working around and sweating, and just kind of doing nothing, just like they did on the show Survivor. The producers told me they used to just sit under the tree. Fuck this, I'm going to last the longest. They had to do those stupid games to get them to move to have a TV show. Because even these uneducated people in outdoor skills knew that if they just stayed real still, they'd have more calories and water, and they would last longer on the show. So they had to animate them to have a show by having all these challenge games. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that was the case.
Sure. And I kind of teed up that one specifically. Boone. I teed up that one specifically because I think that illustrates something that separates survival hobbyist versus like a survival professional is that it's not about doing the elaborate arts and crafts in the woods. Like it's about like sometimes you just do like the not sexy thing because like that is absolutely the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And that's not what TV likes.
That is not
So
what
your
TV
viewers
likes.
need to be aware of that things are sexed up on purpose for ratings,
Like you're
contrary to what you might actually be doing in the field.
yeah.
Boredom.
Or sexed up in the auditions for getting into one of those
tell me
survival
about
shows.
it. Yeah. So one of your biggest enemies in the scenario you might be describing that you did describe is boredom.
Sure.
You know, and how do I deal with it? Well, boredom doesn't do well for being a feature point on a television show. So maybe, you know, it's a rental car. Maybe that, and I'm reading the rental policy for the fourth time. I'm trying to occupy my mind. This is the scary part for most people. I can make something in my imagination a lot more scarier than it actually is. You know, when there's a study they've done, I'm assuming you like breasts. I do. I'm a man. I like breasts. If I saw a nude boob, well, great. But to have that boob partially covered is more exciting. This isn't my opinion. This is because it leaves to the imagination, which is endless, what that tit really looks like. Right?
Sure.
So Hayden's like, cut. What the hell are we talking about?
No.
He's talking about boobs now, Andrew. Cut it. So what I'm saying is that the knock in the dark for someone who's inexperienced or even an experienced person being on that desolated road, broken down with no comms, people are used to the distractions. So just dealing with your own psychology and thermoregulation would be a full-time job for a regular person.
Okay. Our survivalist, our unwitting survivalist, AAA comes, they give him a new rental car, same gear. He is now in he says, you know what, Cody, I'll catch up with you later. I'm going to double back to Colorado from whence I came. But I have all this free time. I'm going to go on another adventure. So he decides that he's going to go for a hike, and he is in the foothills of Colorado, notably colder. He has gone 5 miles up a moderate trail. Okay, it's not super like straight up and down. It's not like a 4,000 vertical feet, you know, every 2 miles, but it's like, you know, he's in the mountains. He has a full Nalgene, a Cliff Bar. He ate a reasonable, normal people breakfast. You're the one who said you want context. Don't look at me like that.
I love all that. Just keep feeding and I'll ask you for more.
And he, and it's about noonish. So it's about when he'd break for lunch. He goes to find a log to sit on. And as he just sees the perfect one, he steps in a gopher hole, twists his ankle horribly. And now he's 5 miles from the truck with an ankle that is not very ambulatory, meaning he can't put weight on it. Too steep to hop just down the trail all the way back. He is stuck unless he does something unless he does something real clever, basically. He has a lighter in his pocket too.
Is it still October? Was it a week after they visited me and got a new rental?
You know, I was thinking about doing that, but no, it's like this dude is pretty like just okay, I'll go do something else.
So is it October?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what's the weather like? What's his elevation on 5 miles up this trail in the foothills of Colorado?
It's 10,000 feet. No, that's pretty high. It is 6,800 feet. He meant to check the weather. It looked pretty good, but Colorado is just like one of those places where everything changes, and he's kind of in a grove of trees, so he has no real line of sight where he can be like,
okay,
oh, there's a front coming.
And it's noon, right?
It is noon.
And what did he have on his person? He had an Nalgene that was full, a Cliff Bar. What about clothing?
He's dressed like reasonably. He's got like long pants, a sweatshirt. And he's got a rain jacket in his pack, just in case. He only thought it was going to be like a little bit of a hike.
So he's on the simple day hike, which is the biggest way to come home in a body bag.
Apparently so.
Okay. Did he do anything? Did he let anyone know where he was going at all before he went up the mountain? I'm assuming he has no comms at this elevation this far out. Or does he have comms?
He told his wife that he was going for a hike. So she might like kind of know where he's at because they're from Colorado in this situation. Like it would be like if you told your girlfriend that you were going for a hike.
And that's not what I do.
Well, this is a hypothetical situation. Imagine you were not like
responsible
Ranger Rick. If you say, yeah, I'm going to go hiking, and like she knew the areas in which you would go hiking. Like if I told Catherine that I was going hiking, she would assume that I was probably in Highlight somewhere. So it's that kind of deal.
Okay. That's a mistake. Just so we know, right?
Okay. So right off the bat, first survival
Right off the bat, what I teach my clients, my students, is the 5W game plan. You tell someone where you're going, when you're going to come back, who's in your party, all the details that need to be known. This person's 8-year-old. This person's not. Names, so search and rescue can call out a name instead of, hey, man. Why? The intention for the trip. Maybe they'll have that climbing rope. Maybe they'll have some gear that SAR can assess what they might be doing with that gear. And the what in this case is the vehicle, the model, the make of that vehicle, the license plate number, etc. That goes with two people that give a damn about you before you go out too. So we've already breached
the 5 W's.
5 W's.
Real quick, say them again.
Where you're going, when you'll be back, who's in your party, what you're driving, and why, the intention of the trip.
Gotcha.
So that's what this person should have done. Okay? They didn't. So it might take a day and a half for his wife to figure out the 10 different areas he likes to hike, which SAR hates that. Because the longer some person's out there lost, the bigger they come home dead. That's not my opinion. That's a statistical fact. The longer someone remains unrescued, the graph goes like this. The larger they come home dead. Search and rescue are two different disciplines. You've made the search real hard because this person didn't say where the hell they were going. So they can't really be rescued because we don't even know where they're at. You see how important that little detail is. So it's noon. It's October, mid-October, 5 miles out of trail. They're lightly dressed for the day hike. They have a Cliff Bar. They have a full quart of Nalgene water by some miracle. They have now a mechanical injury to whatever ankle at noon in the gopher hole. It's hard to be mobile. They have no comms.
They have a backpack. They have like a pretty decent backpack. It's like an Osprey, like whatever.
With
backpack.
what in it?
Oh, just that rain slicker and the Nalgene. They're dumb other than that.
So this person, a lot like the last person, hypothermia is what's probably going to take this person out. Because at that elevation, that far off the trail in the foothills of Colorado in mid to late October, I mean, it was sleeting on us this morning here in Montana, right? So they're going to have temperatures that don't support survival without clothing. Now, they don't have a lot of stuff. So they have the rain slicker. And is it going to rain? I don't know. You couldn't tell me, and he can't see for the forest for the trees. He's going to shelter in place somewhere on that trail, right near that trail. So when his wife goes through the list and SAR gets pissed and goes through all these areas where they might think eventually they're going to walk up that trail and find him. Now you need to realize that. And my first book, there's a National Association for Search and Rescue, NASR. They're like the Red Cross for search and rescue. I asked Mike Tuttle, the guy that used to be president of that organization, hey man, will you look at my book and will you write a foreword for my book, 98.6 Degrees? And he actually said, oh, let me check it out. I was like floored because I don't teach conventionally. I have a bunch of crazy cartoons and
right.
I mean...
Right, he might...
And he might have written me off. But he said, yeah, Cody, I'll do the forward. But I wonder if you would tweak the area where we won't come on you if it's inclement weather or if it's dark. Well, and I said,
you
no.
won't what now?
If they won't come rescue you if it's inclement weather or dark or whatever. Uh-huh. And he wanted me to change that. And I said, no, I'm not changing the truth. And he backed right off to his credit and said, okay. we'll just run it as is. Unless your last name is Kennedy. No, I've been an EMT since 1993, emergency medical technician, right? Because I'm a survival instructor. I have to know how the body works. If you have any medical training at all, if you do, say so. And what's the number one rule before you even get out of the truck? Scene safety. So SAR's not going to fly or whatever, or put their rescuers at risk if the weather's too bad for them or whatever. So this guy 5 miles out the trail might be on his own if a winter storm blows in, regardless of even if people might knowing where he is. The exception to that would be Coast Guard. You can't wait until the ocean calms down. They're the real rock stars of SAR. Right. So I wouldn't want to and I do have a point, but the context, I'm not giving you a black and white answer because they don't exist.
No. I love this.
So this poncho, I would love to stuff it with dry vegetation and shelter in place with my bum ankle against a tree and get some insulation. I also don't want to pop that poncho. If it starts to sleet or rain or snow, I want that barrier. So maybe if there was something like leaf litter that didn't, I'm thinking pine needles, right? Spruce needles or fir needles, they can pop stuff, especially a cheap poncho.
This is a nice rain jacket.
Nice rain jacket. Then I'm going to shelter in place.
Sitka makes it.
Sitka.
Don't worry about it.
It's your podcast. It's okay. So this person's going to shelter in place because of a mechanical injury. They're going to prepare for night. So in October, this person's got 5 hours of light, 4.5, because they're in the mountains and heavy trees. It's already noon. It's October. So they don't have until 8 p.m. It's not winter yet, but summer or autumn equinox has passed. We're rolling toward the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. Daylight is everything. And that's why in some advanced courses of mine, flashlights are taboo. You need to deal with this shit before the sun goes down. So you need to think ahead of the curve. So this person's going to regulate core body temperature, there we go again, by trying to maximize the clothing they have with whatever insulation they can find, be in place, find a sheltered location, but not leaving the trail or piling something in the trail, whatever, to stop some hikers that are coming up and down, whether they're SAR or not. They're going to manage that water, save it. And that's a whole different, should I drink it or should I not? That's the wild card desert survival question. And they're going to have to await rescue and hope that the wife is not cheating on that person and actually cares about that person. Oh, I don't know where my husband went, but it doesn't matter, Joseph. Come on in. You never know.
What, is there any situation where you would I know if he's lost, certainly, like if he doesn't know where he is, you stay where you are, right?
He's injured. He's now going to have to travel downhill on a mountain. Downhill is always tougher than uphill. Mm-hmm. At the end of the trip, spent with a bum ankle. Sure, he can try to walk and, he'll be closer, but you tell me how bad the ankle is. You said he couldn't put weight on it, right?
I've changed my mind. Now he doesn't think that it's not a sprained ankle anymore. Now he thinks that he's broken his leg. He's not broken it in such a way that it is like
lower leg, fib, or not femur?
Yeah, lower leg for sure. Is there would there ever be a point where you'd be like, yeah, maybe try to like immobilize that leg, do some sort of bushcraft like crutches, and maybe try to walk down if it's just a straight shot. And again, it's not like, I would say it's 1,000 vertical feet a mile, which is like steep to be sure, but it's not like prohibitively steep.
Well, having one student over the years that did break fib, she fell, had a heavy pack. I did splint it with willow and duct tape from my bottle. From this bottle. Or one like it. And we had to hobble her out to the van to go to the hospital. Other students will, and I've had a shattered patella in a client where I had to drive my Jeep. Having been in those situations, you're not going very far. You could TV show it I'm going to splint this myself with duct tape and willow. I heard some guy did that. And I'm going to make some crutches. And could you do that? Sure. In the case you're describing in the 21st century, when there's no zombies walking around and we have things called SAR and a wife that gives a shit, who when it gets dark, she knows the places where I'm going to be. You're going to shelter in place and you're going to be near that trail and you're not going to rip up that lower leg anymore and cut veins, arteries, tendons anymore, and maybe cause a bigger internal bleed or whatever. You don't want to hear this. I know. You're going to fucking stay in place and do the common sense thing.
I do want to hear this.
Well, most people don't. They want the sex stuff, right?
Yeah.
Tell me how you're going to make a splint and walk out and kill a grizzly bear with your bare hands. You're going to regulate body temperature so you don't die of hypothermia, which is the most common way to die in this situation. You're going to trust that SAR is going to do their job and that your wife's going to do hers, and you're going to keep as warm as possible until SAR comes up that path with a flashlight with a wheeled litter, right, or whatever, and wheel your ass down that mountain. That's what's really going to happen. That's what happens.
I see a lot of these survival YouTubers in particular. They like to make shelters. I certainly think that if you are, say our hiker made it further up the hill, did not break his leg. He heard that there was like this cool Alpine lake somewhere. He ends up completely, he gets up to the lake. He goes, wow, this lake is beautiful. I'm not sure if this is the one that I was looking for because, around here it's just like pockmarked with lakes. It's not a particularly notable lake. It's like that kind of like, oh yeah, there's this beaver pond if you go up here to here. Say he gets up there, finds the lake, is like, this is very nice. It's time to turn around. He comes back and he realized that in searching for the lake, he has walked 8 miles and he has turned around. He's lost. He's like, I think that it's that way. I cannot be sure. To me, if you're able-bodied, you have all the water right there. He's not terribly concerned about food. Maybe he has like, we'll give him one of those like crappy little med kits, the one that has like 4 Band-Aids and like a fishing line in it.
Right.
And the lake is full of brook trout, as a lot of those lakes in Colorado are. He's like, okay, well, I have water covered. I have this Cliff Bar still, and I could definitely catch these dumb little brookies in this lake. It's getting dark. I would like a shelter in case it snows. And maybe he plans on staying in place, right? Because he's like, I'm by this like big landmark, I'm like, they're going to look at this central attraction, I guess. What kind of shelter like would you build? Like would you build a shelter in that case?
So his wife's not calling SAR anymore?
She is, but they're taking long enough that he's like, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. It might be 2 days, it might be 2 days, but I definitely I don't want to go back to where I'm not sure if I want to stay somewhere that if they fly a helicopter over this, they will see me. So I'm like, I'm putting all my eggs into this basket. It seems like I have everything I need here.
And the thing about shelters, and I would do some probably simple little A-frame. This person, I forget if they had a way to make fire or not. When you bring that into the mix, that changes things a lot. When you make shelters, they
don't have a way to make fire.
Okay. We do a lot of these type of shelters on field courses based on hypothermia, and most people make shelters and then climb in. I make a shelter around the body. What I mean by that is almost everyone makes their shelter too big, and it's too big to heat up with the body. So we want to be like the squirrel, get in there and wrap our tail around us and call it good. Yeah, I would at least find a sheltered location and have nature do the work. That's the first thing. And then maybe improvise some things to do, like you say, get out of snow or certainly wind. That's the conduction, convection, radiation, evaporation, respiration. The 5 ways the body loses and gains heat.
Say those again slowly.
Conduction, the direct transfer of heat/energy through contact with an object. So this dog is not losing heat, but the conduction is direct contact. Convection, of course, would be wind or moving water. Radiation, short irradiation from the sun. That's not going to happen at night. Long irradiation from bodies that are warm or fire. That's the long wave radiation. Evaporation, how not to sweat out your clothing when it starts to get cold so that you, quote unquote, freeze to death, called hypothermia. And respiration, the act of breathing. Those 5 things dictate how everything on planet Earth loses and gains heat. When we're talking about hypo and hyperthermia, it's about losing and gaining heat. So knowing those 5 physics, I mentioned the physics word, will help that student build a shelter based on the biggest threats to life. What I don't like about the YouTube videos, which I don't want.
The big elaborate.
And this is bullshit. This is not meant to be a survival shelter. They don't understand the physics of heat loss and gain. And if you don't understand something that basic, it's like going to a dentist who doesn't know what a tooth is.
It's the difference between building a shelter and building a fort.
Yeah. Yes. So the problem with even that shelter, what even some of my students miss until I nail the point home, this is going to be invisible from the air because it's camo to the max, right? If that sheltered location can be near a meadow that I can run to and wave my arms because there's that DPS chopper, the Department of Public Safety, in my leg of the woods, who will have night vision or whatever if the weather's not inclement like we talked about. This shelter, brush shelter, wiki up, whatever you want to call it on the YouTube channel, needs to be near an area where you can be spotted from ground to air, because they will fly choppers and they will fly fixed wing, and they might find you and give coordinates long before the Jeep crew shows up, long before the dog team shows up, etc. Regulating core body temperature is first, but getting rescued is actually first. So if I'm doing the YouTube thing and I'm going to be on a show on a network and I'm so busy making my survival shelter that I'm ignoring the Jeeps driving by hollering my name that have a big SAR logo, the number one thing that a person compromised in the backcountry needs to do is get the hell out of that situation, which usually means third-party rescue.
I'm trying to help Boone survive by unobstructing his airway.
He's oh, Daddy, you're such a good daddy.
The guy now has the ability to make fire. I've changed the rules again. This is fun.
Yeah, it's fun, right? So we don't know about the wife yet because SAR's coming unless it's snowing. Right?
This guy has no idea about his relationship status. Like, he's still eating all the food that his partner is making. Like, he's not worried about being poisoned, but he's also like, man, she's really friendly with like one of her coworkers.
Oh my God. This is like we're taking the wife out of it. Your scenarios are, okay, is this dude on his own? Does anyone know he's there at all?
Not until I decide otherwise. No, nobody.
Then you're going to do whatever you can. You're going to make a shelter. If you're going to play Tarzan, you're going to make the shelter. You're going to catch the brook trout. You're going to make a fire. You're going to cook the brook trout. Then you're going to dream about the woman you wish you had. You're going to grow old and gray. You'll be friends with the gnomes. The elves will plague, partly because of hallucination. And you'll hope another hiker comes by if you can't walk your way out. Now, seriously, right? If you want, and that's what a lot of people confuse, this context confusion between primitive skills or bushcrafting or whatever you want to call it with straight outdoor survival skills. We're not trying to live off the land. We're not trying to catch fish and be more comfortable and gain weight and have this fancy shelter. We're trying to get the hell out of this situation because it's life-threatening. But if that means, like some wild card scenarios that are like, I was in Fiji and I got the chance to talk to Nando Parado. You know who Nando Parado is? He was one of the guys that walked out with the rugby team that went down the Andes Mountains.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I've watched it on...
Alive, and then was Alive 20 years. There was a book, then there was the movie.
There's this web series, I think it's like Unilad or something. They put out like 30 minutes with, and then it was like a survivalist or whatever. And I think they had one, whether or not they used the term correctly, they had one with him. It was pretty dark.
What a
cool.
rock star. That guy, talk about attitude. But I mean, they were clearly in a situation where they were eating. I mean, Nando lost his mom and his sister in that flight. His friends were eating his mother and his sister. The reason I bring that up is, one, it's true. And two, it's pretty hardcore when you're watching your family members be eaten and still manage to have the party on attitude to walk out or whatever. But, you know, most things pale in comparison to most of our survival situations, as scary as they are, when you read about what people have had to go through physically and psychologically. Go ahead and have your brook trout and your little fire, and you'll be, I mean, that's why I love to read survival stories, because it inspires me so much with that party on attitude about, well, shit, if they can do this, man, I can do this.
Oh, it's funny you say that, because Stephen Callahan, the Adrift dude that I was telling you about, the guy who got stranded for 76, that podcast is out, or it's about to be out. He had that same feeling. He was like, well, you know, I was reading, not Robinson Crusoe, but like there's a really famous, I think in like the 50s or something, or maybe even earlier than that, a group of people that got stuck on a boat, and he was like, well, if they wrote the survival thing that was in his survival kit, like they wrote a survival manual, and he was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And like that's like the thing that he kept coming back to.
Wow.
So it's interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
back to your dude.
Yeah.
Either he walks back and finds his way, a hiker stumbles across him and he goes, hey man, do you know where the X, Y, and Z trailhead is? Or he's out there happily eating brook trout like, you know, Castaway, until, you know, Wilson floats along and he has a relationship with the volleyball or whatever. You know, that's the case, right?
Okay, so our guy, the lake was way more remote than he thought. The spouse is not being supportive in a meaningful way, in that she is not directing people to the right spot. There have been no hikers. This dude is starting to feel like he's in real trouble. And he knows that he's in real trouble because he's coming to this realization 4 days after his ordeal started. I'm taking away his fire ability again. He had no fire ability to begin with.
How many times has he changed the scenario on that?
Well, it's curveballs, man. It was a hallucination. He has been eating these raw brook trout, but now he's like, dude, I need to improve my situation with some fire. I'm thinking about throwing some variables in it, but let's assume that he is nothing other than what I've described. Do you think that there's any chance in hell that this dude gets a friction fire going? It's been very dry. It hasn't rained.
It depends. Friction fires are species specific.
Okay.
That means you'd have to know the trees let me back up. I've been to a lot of places all over the world, and I can look at a plant, maybe stick my thumbnail, see if I can get a depression with my thumbnail, look at the shape, sense it, and maybe use that plant that I have no idea what species it is to get fire, because I've done it. You're really going off the deep end of what this person is physically capable of after day 4, not just skills wise. I mean, clearly, if they don't know shit, then they're probably going to die if you're depending this on fire. But to know what you're describing is such a high echelon of skill, and then we're 4 days behind the 8 ball. No wonder we're, crapping out pure water, right? We're eating raw fish or whatever we're eating.
He's really good at fishing.
He's really good at fishing, but he's not really good at fire making, or he would have brought something to make fire. So, and if you don't know the species, what if he's in an oak forest? He's screwed.
No, it's fir, spruce, and white pine.
Why is he screwed if he's in an oak forest?
Hardwoods don't work well for fire by friction because they're hardwoods. So you're typically going after softer woods. Softer woods are softer, sure. Right? Yeah. So if I didn't like a student, I might give them an oak spindle, right? Because it's just, now oak would be great for a socket for a bow drill set because there's no friction, because it is a hardwood. but we wouldn't want a hardwood as part of the actual fire by friction making pieces.
All softwoods.
All softwoods. It depends on his skill level.
And I'll give you one more thing. There was beetle kill recently. So a lot of this stuff is like fallen timber and bone dry.
Depends on his skill level. Now, I have a course called the nothing course. We go out with nothing. And we end up describing, okay, what do we need to do in this scenario? What the students design the course and say, okay, what skills would we need? Typically, they'll go into stone tool manufacture, and then that stone tools, simple flakes, sharp edges, will go into a fire by friction set, and it's usually a hand drill because we're in a riparian area with cottonwood, which is good for making fire by friction. Maybe there's some yucca around. So we do routinely take stone tools from nothing and do just what you're wanting this guy to do and make fire from nothing with my help, with my skill level saying, get this, let's do this, this tree works, this doesn't. If he's in the right area and has some stones to make a cutting edge and has the training, is it possible? Of course it is, because I do it. This isn't theory. This is what we do in a course of mine.
Okay, what about this guy has glasses, and in order to document this trip, he brought his camera, and the camera has a removable lens.
Yeah, you can do some exotics. You know, you're up at elevation, the sun is more intense, but you're into October. Okay, the incoming solar radiation is less in October than it is in June. Optics for making fire peter off when you get into the wintertime, right? Because there's less incoming solar radiation. The sun's not as intense as it would be in the summertime. Maybe he takes that optics, maybe he takes some cottonwood bark and roughs it up down into a pile of powder and then makes a tinder bundle, have the bundle, coarse, medium, and fine, target area in the middle. We do this on courses as part of what I do with the Fresnel or Fresnel lens.
Sorry, describe that slower, because I think that's like pretty interesting. Okay. Like I want to. So
a tinder bundle is what's used in a lot of. There's fire, fuel, oxygen, and heater ignition. Mm-hmm. So this piece of a binocular would be our heater ignition. It's going to concentrate the solar radiation, shortwave radiation. There we go back to that thing of physics again, into a point. And if we can get that sun's rays condensed into a point, what we would need to do is prepare the fuel. We can't just do that on a stick.
Right,
We're not burning ants, right? So a tinder bundle is looks like a bird's nest. I'm going to make a framework of bark with a hole in the middle, like a bird's nest, like a bowl. And I'm going to fill that with shredded bark. Coarse, pack it in about 60%, make the bark smaller. We'll call it medium. I'm talking about particles of size, because size matters in fire building.
When you say medium, are you talking about maybe like about the size of
I'm talking powder. I'm talking taking inner bark of cottonwood. You said softwoods. Yeah. Or stripping, in my country, excess juniper bark or something, and making what looks like a rat's nest. If you've ever seen a pack rat nest or a mouse nest, it'll look like a mouse nest or a bird's nest. Yeah. We have the container. We have coarse. I'll just take it, rough it up, put it in. And then medium, I'll process it longer so the particles are smaller, put that in. And then fine or target area, I might process it down to powder. And I would for optics.
Like almost like chewing tobacco, like kind of like when you open a can of dip?
Finer, like sugar. Like for optics. Now, if it's a metal match, ferroceriums, all these things are different depending on the ignition source. So for this fire lighting method, I'd want my target area fine. So I have all this fuel in succession of sizes from very small to larger, because we're dealing with very minute amounts of heat. And I'm going to direct the sun's rays. You put me in a forest, right? So I'm going to have to go out.
No, you're on the beach
trees.
now. You're on the beach now. Yeah, because you're staying.
And I'm going to I'm going to do this immediately, because you said it was at noon. It's not going to get any better. But one, the angle of the sun is not going to be through the trees anymore. It's going to be covered by the trees. And the sun's only going to be hottest right up in here. And if you wanted me to break apart that magnifying glass and make that tinder bundle and focus that ray of solar radiation on that small a bit of fuel, and then you move it You move it about 1 millimeter because it'll burn through the top layer. You'll see it smoke. If it doesn't smoke in about 2 seconds, then move it back and forth. And we anchor the tinder bundle on the ground. We don't do this where there's 2 planes of variation. You anchor the fuel here, so the only variation is in one hand. And you get that optic to where it's pinpoint, too big. I do half moon. I swing the lens this way so there's a half moon of light, then bring it to full moon, and then back it up or forward until it's pinpoint, and it should smoke within 1.5 seconds, or you're fucking up somehow, or there's not enough solar intensity. And then I'm going to keep moving that point just a little bit, millimeter here, because when it scorches that little bit of bark, it doesn't like go into the fuel by even 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to try to carbonize and burn maybe the size as big as your fingernail or something like that. And if I can see it glow orange, then I'll blow that into flame, and then I will build my fire with that and never, ever, ever let that fire go out and or have another tinder bundle, because all it takes is an ember the size of a grain of rice to make a new fire in a tinder bundle.
Right. And that's why people you're almost doing like the char clothy sort of deal.
Char cloth is different. I just taught that 4 days ago.
Well, no, I'm saying like you're carbonizing this stuff for like the same basic purpose to have something quick.
That was a poor choice of words on my part.
Okay.
You're trying to make an ember that glows orange. Okay. That's not carbonization per se. What I mean by that is that condensed solar radiation is only in one space and time.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't magically burn down into the tinder bundle by an inch. So when you carbonize and you ash up the top of that the fine, you need to slightly move that glowing ball of light to where and you need to then just shade it and take a chance and blow on it. And if you see smoke and it glows orange, then you should be home free. You see how technical this can be?
Sure, yeah.
And I've been eating raw fish for 4 days and poop and whatever, and now I'm magically,
It's 3 days later. He is eating cooked fish. He's not shitting himself. He does let the fire go out, and now it's a hellacious snowstorm. There is 1.5 feet on the ground. It does not seem as if it's letting up. He's thinking, well, I've been eating well and I feel pretty good. I'm very cold. Do I use the snow for like insulation, try and build like a snow shelter, or B, do I try to like do some exercising in a tree well while this storm is going down? And keep my body temperature up that way.
We already had a shelter. I thought we already built him one.
He has one, but he's trying to stay out of the snow, and he was smart. He built a really small shelter that was like just big enough for his body, so he can't like exercise in it per se.
Okay, he can by doing what? I'm exercising right now. What am I doing?
You are pushing your hands together.
I'm doing isometrics.
Isometrics.
So if I'm compromised on where I can't get out and do sissy squats, which is using the quadriceps and the gluteus maximus, the largest muscles of my body, while trying to mitigate convection. We don't want to do jumping jacks. It all boils back to physics, right? You can do push-pulls, and people do. I'll see students, they're miserable as hell, right? And shivering is muscular action, right? It's your body's way of saying, we're going to try to warm up your core because you're starting to get hypothermic. So it's uncoordinated muscular rhythms called shivering that try to heat up your core. But you can exercise by just doing the push-pulls, albeit it's a little bit more compromising. But if you sit here and do this long enough, you're going to generate calories, you're going to burn more calories that produce the heat. There's only 3 ways I know that humans can produce heat. What are those 3 ways? I'm not talking about
exercising.
Exercise is one. Eating calorie-dense foods and...
an external source of warmth.
Called what?
Not convection, for sure.
You said he couldn't do it anymore. You're very good. You've already got the make a fire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah.
He can't make a fire. He can marginally exercise. Okay. His body will exercise for him, called shivering, and you let him run out of food, right? At the end, if we keep nickel and diming this, the guy's going to die.
Yeah.
Right? You can't pulled a rabbit out of the hat. You're dealing with the physics of heat loss and gain. You're dealing with the psychology of the person. He's done pretty well.
Yeah.
He's lasted several days out there, but if he keeps pushing it and being a dumbass, let the fire go out, somehow doesn't have the binoculars anymore, whatever, you're going to die.
Yeah. Okay, well, our hero is dead. We can still learn from him, however. Let's talk about like preventative measures other than the obvious, like the 5 W's.
Which isn't obvious, by the way. So I'm glad you're saying it on your show. Most people do not do the 5 W's. They don't tell someone where they're going to go, when they're going to be back, what they're driving, who's in their party, names, medical issues, whatever, and the intention of the trip, the why. If your listeners don't do anything else, for God's sake, have them say, hey, we're going to this location. We'll be back at this point in time. If their life isn't worth enough to do those simple 5 things, that's minimal. And that alone would save dozens of lives over the years. So it's not common. Go on, though.
Okay. Well, you know, I just get to hang out with you and stuff. So now it's like very obvious to me. We're going to talk about a kit that you would have. And this is not a panacea. Like, this is not like everything in the kit. Let's say like the 5 most important things that we would put in to keep in a car, to take on a day hike, and in an overarching medical kit, right? So we have like the car kit, the day hike kit, and then a medical kit that if you only had one medical kit in either of those situations, you might have these 5 things in it. I mean, and not just those 5 things. Again, we're like triaging here. So these are like priority 5 items in each.
Okay. They'll do the medical first. No one's going to do beyond their scope of training. And even though I'm an EMT, and I do have a medical kit for myself and clients, the number one thing I use is ibuprofen. Aches and pains, sprains. I had a guy screw up his ankle on day 1 of a 7-day, the most rugged course I do. We got him through with 4 doses a day, 800 milligrams per dose, ibuprofen, 200 milligrams a piece. I like the bright orange ones because they're easier. And then when I make ibuprofen brown, because you lose it when it hits the ground, they make orange ones at a store called Fry's, which is a Kroger store where I'm from. We fed him 800 milligrams every 3 to 4 hours, you know, for the end of the trip. And that's the only way he could complete that trip. So other than a cut and, you know, some way to dress and irrigate that wound, I use tincture of iodine 2% for water disinfection. It also can be used for wound disinfection. So it's double duty.
Tincture iodine, those are those little like pellets.
No, I buy it in the 1 ounce bottle liquid. Yes, Potable Aqua is a brand that has the little pellets. I don't like those for various reasons, which would take a long time to get into based on medical research. I get the tincture of iodine 2%, the 1 ounce bottle. And you do that directly, or if it's too harsh, you could put that and dilute that down in a syringe. But I'm just telling you that 34 years in the field, short of the duct tape and the willow branch on a couple people's legs, I use ibuprofen a lot. Maybe there's an antihistamine because people are allergic to something. They're not used to being outside. And then how do I deal with that cut? By far, number 1 is ibuprofen. So that's what my kit has more than that, but not beyond. I'm dealing with wound management and I'm dealing with musculoskeletal injuries.
Okay.
If someone passes out and has a cardiac arrest, they're going to die in the backcountry. I can't deal with that. It might be 5 hours before a helicopter comes in. Wilderness involves risk. Right? So you're not, I don't care if you're a full medic. You can't sustain someone in cardiac arrest in the wilderness. You just can't. They're probably going to die. You can't probably sustain someone that just drove an axe through the femoral artery and they've already lost, you know, 1.5 quarts of blood. Some things are non-negotiable as far as an accident that could take someone out. As far as the survival kit, Big 5, you know I'm a sucker for context, but even the context that I would take, we always take fire and always take a cutting edge and always take cordage and always take a container and always take shelter, which I do. That's been done for tens of thousands of years. These people on YouTube, I came up with this. Oh, really? So everyone for thousands of years was just sitting on their thumb. Thank God someone told me to put on a shelter and have a container in 2010. I didn't know what to do for the last several centuries. Oh, that's ridiculous when people are claiming common sense stuff that's been used by native peoples for millennia. Now, I said those 5 things and I carry them. Who do you know who's experienced with fire?
Wait, can you give us those 5?
Fire, some sort of container, some sort of containment for the body, and cordage.
Is that a well-known 5 list?
Oh, sure. It's been known for Ask Iceman.
Okay.
Right? He was 5,200 years old, the guy they found frozen, and he had semblances of that same stuff. This is not some TV show, some guy on YouTube who came up with this.
But what I'm saying is that's like the 5 W's though. Like, is that like a standard thing?
I'm not done with my context. It is to someone who knows what in the hell they're doing. Now, you put fire and a cutting edge in the hand of an untrained person who's a YouTube jockey, and the biggest calluses they have are on their fingertips from doing this, that could cause the survival situation.
Okay.
So even the stuff that I would carry in a survival kit that's been carried for thousands of years by native peoples all over the world, you have to know how the shit works. Or you could cut your thumb off or drive a knife into your femur, or burn the forest down, which has been done by people trying to signal for rescue. I wrote about that in my first book. Some lady lit a forest fire, burned down 500 houses she was looking at the first forest fire, got lost, tried to signal a news helicopter, lit a bush on fire, and caused an entire another forest fire.
That's a lot like trying to like write your name in sand on the beach, like if you're in trouble.
You have to know what you're doing. And like we talked about at the beginning of this, there's no substitute for field experience. You can't Google field experience. You can't wish for it. You have to train. And if you're not willing to train, be super cautious anyway. What I would carry in a kit is based on my skill level. It's not this one-size-fits-all thing. Well, I'll carry this because Cody does. Well, you're not me, right? You don't have the experience I might have in this. I'm not going to, you have different experiences, he has different experiences, and I have different experiences. You play to your strengths, and you take your strengths with you out in the field, and you try to get stronger and stronger. And don't be cowed or people are selling gear based on people's ignorance, their fear, and their ego. Don't fall into that trap. Fall into the common sense trap.
Do you get this is the bear skin hoodie? I keep getting this advertisement for this stupid like tactical hoodie thing that's like totally plays into that. What about in the car? Like, and this is just
same, right? The physiological needs are the same.
Yeah, but it's like everybody needs like a tire patch kit in the car, right? Like it's like I'm talking like shit like that, not sexy stuff.
My Jeep has a high lift jack because it has a lift kit, which renders the real jack useless. I have bumpers that will actually support that load of lifting the entire Jeep up with the high lift jack that I have mounted on the front of the vehicle. I have a tire patch kit and a compressor. I have a spare on the top because my Jeep, I rattled it on so many roads because of where I live. The back door is torn. The sheet metal is torn. So I can't have the tire. I wish Jeep would make a,
I guess I'm talking more about like blankets and granola bars. It's like, because I got like a little kit in the back of my thing, and it's an old camp stove that I used to use, like an ultralight one. It's like, 6 Mountain House meals, like a couple puffy jackets.
It depends on where you are. If you're going back roads in Bozeman, why wouldn't you have a sleeping bag and a pad and a tarp and extra camping food and whatever, and a knife and ways to make fire, and you've let someone know where you are,
yeah,
a flashlight.
I get what you're saying.
If you're going from Prescott to Phoenix on I-17, when there's traffic whizzing by, you should at least have water in the desert. If you're at a traffic stop or an accident, you can be for 4 hours in your car. If you don't have air, I've seen it. People are getting dehydrated in their vehicles because they're not prepared. They don't have air conditioning for whatever reason, and they're not moving, so they don't get the convection. It depends on context.
So I guess that's like the big thing I'm taking away. It's not so much that like there are obviously things that are good to have. Like, it is good to have a rain jacket pretty much wherever you're going, unless it's like Death Valley, and it would just be like absolutely ridiculous to have a rain jacket. But in 99% of places, like, yeah, it's good to have a rain jacket in your pack. Things like that. But what's better is to go, where am I now? Where am I going? What might go wrong between there and here? And if those things were to go wrong, I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to buy flares and like all this, like, or, maybe if you're on the ocean, you do that. Right. But for the most part, I don't need to go crazy. I don't need like a flare gun and like, a satellite phone plan. Although Andrew has a flare gun in his car and I have a satellite phone plan. The best thing to do is go, here are the basic things that I might need. Water is a concern. Shade is a concern. It could get cold, so a jacket is a
regulations
concern.
First.
Yep.
Outside of settling for rescue, we haven't really talked about settling for rescue other than the car hood that was up. But you're right. But between that point A and point B is up to the user. I don't know what's between those points A. I mean, that's the context part.
Like your Nalgene wrapped in duct tape, which is something that I've done kind of forever, and I know a lot of other people that do that. That's like a really cool survival tip. Yeah, wrap your thing in Nalgene. If you look at any of my or a lot of my lighters, like they're also wrapped in duct tape. I have lighters stashed everywhere also. That's like one thing that I always do. What's like a tip like that you think could be really good for the average person? Like, again, wrapping your Nalgene in tape, I think is like a really good one.
Well, I like these bottles, and I don't have steak and Nalgene at all. I like wide mouth bottles, so I can hit that tincture of iodine 2%. I don't like the narrow mouth bottles. It's harder to hit. It's harder to fill from river or lake. I like it clear because around the fire at night with no flashlights allowed in certain courses, I can still disinfect water and see it. I don't like colored bottles or opaque bottles because you can't see the drop hit the water. I like this bottle in particular because it's durable. I've literally had a truck hit it and it was fine, as in a pickup truck ran over it, not this one in particular. I have 2 different types of duct tape on here. Like there's different types. If you go to a hardware store, you'll realize that there are many varieties of duct tape. Mm-hmm. So I like a couple different varieties. I put this parachute cord here. I melt the ends right there so it doesn't pull through. I used to tie a knot and that would wear holes and things. I was on a course of mine in May. We've had drought in Arizona. A place where we go that had water, we couldn't reach it. So we took our parachute cord that they were bandoliering this around, tied it off, and we're putting and lowering this down into this funky water to scoop it up from 8 feet away or so, and then we would disinfect it. So I don't like carrying my bottle like this. This is vulnerable. I would carry it like that. Duct tape, we've talked about it. I've sealed garbage bags. I've sealed up tarps. I've done the broken bones with it. It's an accelerant for fire. It's just like baling wire, right? It's useful for a million different things. So, and I like brightly colored lids so I can see it. I have 2 bottles at all times because tincture of iodine 2% takes 20 minutes to disinfect via medical books, depending on a bunch of variables that we don't have time for. So I'd have a colored lid here that was different color than this, so I know which one to drink. So there's a lot of engineering on just this bottle, and we've gone through it all on your show about what I like and why I like it. There's a reason for everything. And this is totally based on function and common sense and efficiency in the field. It's not based on pretty colors and whatever, but I've carried a bottle like this. I wrote about this in 98.6. I've been doing this since the late 1990s.
And then the other thing people might know you from is you were the OG host, the original host, Discovery Channel's, or one of 2 original hosts of Discovery Channel's Dual Survival.
Yeah, you have to burn incense when you say that name, though, and to get the incan. Yeah, thank you.
Well, last night it was funny. We were going and getting a cheeseburger, and some dude yells across. No shit, Andrew. Somebody fucking yelled across the Five Guys. Hey, are you the Barefoot guy with the Discovery Channel thing? and I kind of like tried to like deflect it. I was like, no, he gets that all the time because you said you get recognized like kind of a bunch.
You did a great deflection, by the way.
Thanks. I tried to, but then he kept fucking going after it. He was like, no, you're the guy, right? And I was like, dude, is this like this isn't even good writing. What the hell? What's going on? How often does that happen to you?
A lot. So usually people don't yell across the restaurant, but I don't blend well, right? So that's part of the issue. But yeah, that guy I don't think he was hammered. I just think he was
dumb.
You maybe.
Enthusiastic.
No, he was. I think he was probably just excited. I shouldn't be mean, but so we're here talking about survival. What are some things that people? Do you want to tell people about our duck hunt this morning? Sorry, I know that
I was a virgin.
This is why I take the Adderall.
I was a virgin, and I'm not a virgin anymore with duck hunting.
Yeah, you got to put that caveat in, please.
Let me see. We went to a place that a friend of yours has, small pond. You had me get up at the god-ass break of dawn, right?
But you do that anyway.
I do that anyway. You had me put on these waders. I was wearing pants and shoes. So you had me do the double sin of pants and shoes at the same time, which is, I don't know if that's ever been done before. Yeah,
well, Andrew, I don't know if you know this, but notably, Cody, he's like barefoot kind of constantly, as the guy at the restaurant so eloquently pointed out. When is the last time you've been in like pants and shoes?
Probably for the survival show, because there's some parodies I did on there where I was playing someone else, right? So that's probably so that would have been years ago.
Why do you do that?
I do that, mostly to acclimate.
Okay.
And so what happens when summer turns into autumn and then turns into winter, and this is not really Bozeman specific, obviously, I'd freeze my ass doing this in Bozeman.
You would get frostbite.
Right. But you just, instead of putting on clothes, you don't, and you do it sparingly. And the season doesn't go from autumn to winter in 2 days, right? So the body adjusts. It's called acclimatization.
Yeah.
And that has going down these scientific rabbit holes. I do it because I like to acclimate my body, because I teach survival skills for a living, and I want my body fucking tough. So if I don't train on myself, I can't expect clients to do that. So by training and acclimating more, I can do more with less, which is kind of the point of my school. Same thing with my feet. I was fascinated at how native peoples all over the world, people have been giving me shit about going barefoot for years, right? I've been doing it for over 30 years. But every time they find that fossilized footprint that's 100,000 years
with
old.
Splayed toes and stuff,
it's barefoot, right? So when you have to make your own footwear, you go barefoot when you can, because you have to make your own footwear. It's called conservation of resources, which people in the U.S. don't understand anymore. We go buy more stuff.
Yeah.
And we're encouraged to buy stuff because it's good for the economy. That's not the way it was back in the day. That meant death. You conserve your resources. So I was fascinated how native peoples could go barefoot. And there's places in Arizona, believe me, you don't go barefoot, right? You wake sandals or whatever. That's the apex hell for going barefoot is Arizona. But I wanted to train myself. I was reading POW stories because I love to read survival stories. And one of the first things they did with the soldiers, they took their boots because they ain't going to run, right? So you have this conditioned, hard-ass Special Forces soldier that has baby feet, right? So that's why they took those boots. Okay, motherfucker, now go, and because you won't run very far and we're going to catch you. So I was fascinated with those limitations that were self-imposed by a society that lets put on shoes all the time. I wear flip-flops when I need them. I'm not going to be celibate for it. I'm not going to not take my sweetheart to a restaurant I'm going to be barefoot, damn it.
Yeah.
So I have them in each vehicle if a store kicks me out or whatever. But I like to train and maintain a certain toughness. And anyone who trains know that when you stop training, it goes away. Yeah. And it goes away too damn quick. It's not fair because it takes a long time to get it and a short time to lose it.
How often do you get kicked out of stores and shit?
I know which ones to go to. I have the stores that welcome me with open arms, and I have the stores like Costco that, and like Walmart that immediately they have the greeters.
Yeah.
The G stands for Gestapo. They're not there to say hi. They're there to hey, put on some shoes. One time I had a Sharpie marker and I drew a flip-flop on my feet. And the greeters would this guy followed me around for about 30 yards until he realized that's just marker on your feet. Get out, young man. So I've done the gambit of trying to, I thought about getting a tattoo of,
that's funny. That's
of shoes on my feet or whatever, but I know the stores I can go to.
What do the Barefoot detractors say? You said people have been giving you shit for 30 years.
Well, I'm not recommending people go barefoot.
Yeah.
Because there's risks associated with that. Obviously, I go barefoot for a variety of reasons, and one of them is to toughen my feet. And I go slower. I recognize stuff more. I'm forced to not shred. Right. Through the woods, and so I can pick up stuff. I can feel subtleties with my feet. I like to drive, of course, barefoot too, and I can tell if there's a different vibration. I've literally picked stuff up that needed mechanical maintenance through my feet by driving barefoot.
Yeah, but
not recommended.
Sure, but what do the detractors say? Are they like, you're a barefoot hippie and like?
What are the detractors? There's been so many detractors.
Well, okay, they're just not saying positive stuff about it.
Yeah, it's like whatever stuff, and they're right. It involves risk, but I understand. I've been doing this risk for a long time. We went duck hunting this morning. There's risk with firearms. There's risk with dogs. There's risk with engaging life. But if you have a lot of training in engaging life, you go out a lot, you recreate, you hunt and you fish. You've mitigated some of those risks. You haven't prevented them, because that's the dead person that thinks they've prevented risks. So I have a lot of training at what I'm doing. I'm not a newbie at this stuff, sure. But I'm not recommending other people go barefoot, certainly not in the wilderness. But I enjoy it a lot, as painful as it can be sometimes, because it really puts me in. We were talking about this morning, watching the sun come up over that pond, about this deep visceral connection with nature. Go barefoot in the woods, and you'll get a connection with nature, right? Because you're in contact with that nature, and it makes a difference. So now there's this thing called earthing and grounding, that now all of a sudden it's cool to go barefoot, and I don't know the physiology or physics behind that, but there's books on it. It's called earthing, grounding. I don't know. Yeah. Electromagnetic force in the earth, or whatever you want to call it, where now it's trendy.
That is some hippie shit, I think. I also noticed in your knees, you got some pretty impressive calluses on your knees. Get involved.
Now, you can imagine the jokes about my knees. He's always on his knees, right? So why would I have callous knees? Keep it clean, Andrew, right?
Why? Why?
Why? Because the standing joke is because I'm on them all the time, right? But I am. I was on them for 2 hours duck hunting. Mm-hmm. I'm on them making bow drill fires. I'm on them on the ground. I'm on my knees a lot because I'm outside a lot with students doing what I do. So when we talk about false versus fiction with survival instructors, if the survival instructor's body doesn't look like it's been used, if they don't have any calluses on their hands and calluses where they should, even if I was wearing pants, this would be tough, or it would be soft. My feet are calloused. My knees are calloused. My hands are calloused. Why? Because I'm using them, and I'm using them in the outdoors, and I'm using them in Arizona. So that's why this is part of my job, and that's why I have them.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I've Andrew and I have talked about this a whole bunch. You have these tactical instructors, and these people are you need to be prepared for anything. And it's dude, you are very not you, I'm talking about the tactical instructors, you're very out of shape, man. It's
right.
If you really wanted to be prepared for everything, run a little bit and check your diet and, lift some weights or something. And it cracks me up, because these are it's kind of to your point, when you said the people who are dead are the ones who feel like they've not mitigated, but eliminated the risk. Those kind of folks, I feel as if they've insulated themselves by these auxiliary things, whether it's weapons or quick clot and tourniquets or whatever that they don't have to do. They're Tony Stark in the Iron Man suit, kind of.
Yeah.
And that just fascinates me.
Part of that's gear centric. The gear is the Band-Aid to cover the common sense and training. And the other part of it is just lack of training. So if you have someone who's beginning who's a beginning survival instructor, and I was too, right, back in the day, those are the answers that are going to come out a lot black and white. It's either this or it's either this. We talked about grays earlier. The grays come with experience, and I'm not talking necessarily about hair. I'm talking about the grays when you realize, well,
the nuance.
This isn't black or white. This is a series of grays, because when you combine human nature with Mother Nature, which is what I do professionally, all hell can break loose. So you learn a lot by learning a lot. I'm in constant learning mode. That's why when I flew in here to Bozeman, when you said you had some ducks, I was immediately like, I've never processed a duck. Can you teach me how to process a duck? So you're teaching me how to do something, and that might floor some people, but I never processed a duck before. And you taught me how to process a duck.
It was also fun because that meant that I had to process 3 less ducks. So yeah. I liked that. It was a good exchange. Anytime you wanted, dude, if you want to learn how to process an elk.
Do you got a fence I can help paint too, Tom?
Yeah. That keeps coming up. I've seen that in like a million spots as of late. It's a really good bridge to some stuff in modern survival, whether that's like, or modern portrayals of survival, YouTube, some of the more sensationalized shows that are out now, things of that nature. What is some stuff that drives you kind of nuts in that arena?
What drives me nuts is when a profession is as serious as keeping people alive, because we're dealing with people's safety, is now such a part of our junk culture that it's now just this flippant game show. And so there's a bunch of people and networks and whatever that their main agenda is making money or being famous or getting ratings. They're not into teaching survival skills whatsoever. That's not the agenda. The agenda is a TV agenda. Now, that's a different agenda that we can discuss. I've dedicated my life to my craft. I just finished 34 years at my Aboriginal Living Skills School, and I take my job real seriously because when I have a student in remote backcountry, they're relying on me and we're relying on each other. And I have some courses that are pretty rough. We're trying not to push through the envelope. We're mitigating mitigating risk and caution, and that's what a survival instructor does. So it's literally, what's the feeling I'm looking for? It's, I'll think of the word that it makes me feel. It's one, sending a huge wrong message to millions of people out there about what survival training is. And it repulsive is the word I was looking for. It physically repulses me about what I've seen happen to the profession I'm involved in because of media. Now, at the same time, that media has jump-started the interest in survival training, but by far the dark cloud of phony survival experts, networks that embrace risk because that's good for ratings as opposed to actually mitigating risk. I don't know if the profession will ever heal or come back until a bunch of people die, apparently, right? Clients die, phony survival experts die. I mean, it's like, it's so far entrenched down a rabbit hole of sensationalism. Now people are taking their clothes off to be on TV under the guise of survival training. It started, you mentioned, when has it started? And it didn't start with social media. Part of the start was Rambo. When you think about Stallone, I mean, it's a great role for him, but that was the special forces guy who nothing was impossible and whatever. And it started this mythos of bullshit, that bridged military survival skills and outdoor survival skills, which, by the way, are separate professions. You mentioned a Gravy SEAL, and has nothing. I don't teach military skills. I've never taught military skills in 34 years. I teach outdoor survival skills. So I don't like when people can take a 2-week course on outdoor survival skills and all of a sudden think they can start teaching my profession. It's deeply insulting. And so I want that 2-week course when I can be a Navy SEAL. Right. Why not? Why can't I have the 2-week course where I can be what you do? And that's insulting to them. So first we have to figure out that outdoor survival skills is different from being in the U.S. military or any military. Now, I know some SERE instructors that are good guys that specialize in teaching survival as one aspect: survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. It's 25% of what they do. It's fucking 100% of what I do. I teach modern outdoor survival skills, primitive living skills, and urban preparedness with and without zombies. So those are 3 different types of ducks. They're all ducks, but they have different intentions, maybe different habits, maybe different feeding structures, maybe different breeding times. It's not just one big duck. Right. So what also is happening on social media and TV shows is people are confusing what I would teach Hayden and your sweetheart. If you were going out in the truck and the truck broke down, I wouldn't be having you making fire with sticks, for God's sake. You know, that's a fine and complex motor skill from hell. Because I know through physiology that your adrenaline's going to start amping. You're with someone you care about a lot. You know, I know you both recreate and whatever, but you're, as a man, responsible now. You know, even though your woman can hold her own, that's pretty obvious. Sure. But there's extra pressure if you had a kid out there or whatever. So anything when a life-threatening scenario potentially happens is something called adrenaline. And it's at least low-level anxiety, fear / full-blown panic, and you don't want the last one at all. That affects your motor skills. That affects your judgment. That affects your thinking. No one takes that into account. They focus on the physical hard skills, which are important, but 90% of before you die is the chemical cocktail of crazy psychology going on in a scared person's body, which limits some of the hard skills that they can do. So a lot of people that aren't really survival instructors teaching survival skills have no idea what just came out of my mouth. That's not part of the training methodology because they're not a real instructor. So they're teaching in methods that are not gross motor. I try to teach in gross motor skill methodology, stuff Hayden can do when he's cold, when he's scared. Like we might simulate hypothermia by putting those rubber dish gloves that you'd wash dishes before we strike a match to compromise the motor movement in the fingers in June in Arizona when there is no compromise from hypothermia. Anything to try to simulate stress, fear. So I might fuck with my students. I might just, I might yell at them. I might, if you don't get this fire lit, you and the person you love are going to die. My job is to facilitate stress, because if you think you're going to go out, have a Five Guys burger and then walk out of your survival situation with no psychological ramifications whatsoever, that's a dead person already walking. There's many, many, many parts to what I do. There's the physics of it, the physics of heat loss and gain, hypothermia, dehydration. Then there's the psychology, which we've been talking about, how human people react when they're scared stupid because they're going to die or think they will. And then there's the physiology about what goes on in the body, 98.6 and beyond, because this is what we're trying to take home. You mentioned the fat military dude or fat anybody. Now, I'm not against fat people.
Well, also, I'm not talking about military. I'm talking about the people who cosplay.
I understand.
Military guys.
Someone, the body is what you're trying to keep alive. And you don't have to train 5 days at the gym or whatever. But if you're teaching survival skills and you're horribly out of shape, you're a walking example. It's like, I don't want to go to a fat person for an aerobics class, right? We're trying to keep the body alive. So one of my guests on my podcast was he's a bodybuilder, weightlifter, and does nutrition. And I was talking to him about hardcore nutrition and basic physiology in the backcountry, because someone who is in better shape, that might be what literally keeps them alive and gets them out or prevents a survival situation, as opposed to someone whose health is compromised or physical fitness is compromised.
Have you ever heard the idea that a lot of times it's actually people who are slightly more in shape that tend to be in the survival situation because they can put themselves in them and they think that they have a lot more to get out, but the person who's way out of shape doesn't leave the trailhead?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting when it was first kind of flown by me. So I understand your philosophy, sort of. Like, I understand as much as somebody can understand it in a brief explanation like that.
I downloaded a hell of a lot of stuff on you over decades, which I never understood. You can conceptualize something here for years before it finally drops down into here through experience. Like you have a lot of experience hunting and fishing.
That's true.
And like we talked about, I love to go down the rabbit holes of nuance. And I love training with people that are mad obsessed about what they love because they're going to be really good and be able to tell you those fine points that other people can't. So a lot of what I just said there, your viewers are going to have to watch it 2 or 3 times because there's a lot of, it'll come later about, oh, that's what he meant. And it doesn't matter. But my goal is to help your listeners however I can keep their ass alive. That's what I do.
Who are some people in the outdoor, like the survival industry thing that you like? Are there any that you go, you know what, this person, like, yeah, sure, they got to ham it up for the camera here and there, but they're representing it pretty well.
On TV or in the survival profession? Because there are 2 different categories.
I was saying like popular media. So it could be YouTube. It could be. You don't like anybody?
I don't follow that. I don't watch TV to begin with, for one, and the people I respect were the people that taught me, and they're dying off. They're the old guard that I call. The people before social media, before TV shows, they taught because they were passionate about the skills. They didn't teach to try to get fucking famous and be on TV and make money. Their intention was to help people and be good teachers. Thankfully, those are the people I trained with, and some of them are still alive and some of them are not. So you're talking to someone, I have a very, very high bar about respect, credibility, and integrity. And my instructors, not the people that taught for me, but the people that taught me, had that. Nowadays, and this is not just my opinion, it's my experience, you have people wanting to learn survival skills to get on TV shows.
Oh, sure.
Right? That's a totally different ethical, moral thing that we're talking about here.
It always kind of fucked me up how, like, on specific shows, like Naked and Afraid, for example. Wait, can I tell you a really funny story about that?
I guess so. If you have
No. It is. You're gonna like it. You're gonna like it. So, one of my best friends is guy David, and we're in. I think we're late in high school. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I went to school right outside of Philadelphia. Dave lived in Philadelphia, and he lived in like he was like a city kid. His dad was a homicide detective in North Philly.
Wow.
Yeah, it was intense. But anyway, so he had a lot of like North Philly vibe, like all over him. And so we're sitting there, we're watching television, and he goes, "Hey man, can you play that show on the Discovery Channel?" I was like, "What show is that?" He goes, "You know, the one where people are surviving and shit." I was like, "You're going to have to be more specific than that. That's like a lot of Discovery Channel's roster at the moment." And he goes, "You know the one, it's called Ain't It Scary When You Naked?" I was like, I know which one you mean, man, but that's not what it's called. That's a funny part.
I got a story I can tell you.
Yeah.
On that same show, a student of mine several years ago admitted that he had no survival skills experience, one of the reasons he was taking my course. And he got accepted to be on Naked and Afraid. And you want to know what he did to get accepted?
What?
He sent a video clip of him having sex with 3 women at the same time. That was the gold standard of being on Naked and Afraid, which emphasizes my point about, what more do you... It wasn't about anything other than he was banging 3 women at the same time. Hey, this is the guy we want on our survival show.
To be fair, like that would by definition make a very successful mammal.
It would.
I don't know how to, I mean, sure I do. Okay. I do know how to interact with this. Why do you think that things like that are still the case? Do you think that that's like, do you think that that's a casting director going, this person has a very particular type of personality if they'd be willing to send this? I bet you that they're also willing to do some other crazy shit. And
I don't know, but what I told you is true. And so you can make your own summation about if you're looking for a survival instructor or a survival show, one that you might want to watch to get skills to help keep you and your family alive, and you turn to the one where some guy's having sex with 3 women, you're off the mark.
I think that that's a very fair assessment.
Yeah, that's not what you're looking for with credibility for a survival instructor. You know, I can't get any more graphic than that point. And when he told me that, I wasn't surprised because I've been in that world.
What did you say to him as somebody who was the teacher to that person? Were you like, I'm wildly disappointed in your...
I'm not going to judge him for what he's doing. He went through one of my roughest courses and he did great. And we were all a tribe, and my job as an instructor is to pull people together, you know, and to Lord of the Flies, everyone dies. Birds of a feather, they stay alive together. And I just made that up, right?
Okay, I like it.
There's a lot of this push-pull stuff. One of the biggest push-pulls that we mentioned, Rambo. Then there's this movie called Survivor that came on that's been monetarily very successful. And our camera guys on Dual Survival shot that show.
Oh, the show,
some of the main cameras on that show. And I was interviewed by Playboy magazine, like 2001 or something like that, about that show and what they were having to do even then behind the scenes, bags of rice, tubes of sunscreen, and blah, blah, blah. But the whole point of that is to vote someone off the island. If you were an actual tribe that had that methodology, all of you would die.
Sure.
You know, you can look at what's happening in the nation now. So we need to come together. There's a lot of infighting going on. And when you have that happen in a backcountry situation, I don't need to tell you, things go downhill real quick. If you're a hunting guide and, you know, you need to keep, anytime you're guiding people in remote wilderness with limited resources, it's a serious situation. You can't be doing 3 women at the same time type attitude. You have you're professionally, ethically, morally responsible for getting that client in, shooting that elk or whatever, getting them back out safely. Bozeman's rough. Not the coffee district in town, but as you know,
Sure.
And as you know, you walk out into these mountains, if you don't have a game face on, you could come back very, very dead.
Yeah.
When I flew in, it's like there's already snow in the mountains. And I was looking out the plane window going, this is just hypothermia heaven here. The one misstep, the one flat tire. The reason that I'm so hypersensitive to risk is because I've fucking seen it over and over and over. I've made the mistakes. Right? So someone like on TV who's taking risks, who's jumping off the cliffs, who's drinking their piss, either they don't know better or they've sold out to that network, the network that wants them to do that for better ratings.
You know, it's really funny because that is one of the reasons that I reached out to you in particular. And when we were talking about doing this podcast, you were like, do you have time for a phone call? I was like, yeah. And we had this phone call, and one of the things
it was 1 hour long phone call.
It was a good phone call. It was a fun phone call. One of the things that was like super clear from the jump, you were like, look, man, like if you want to do this like kind of like hokey, like whatever, or, you know, if you're having this like a survival series, which is what we are involved in, you're like, I kind of want to be sure that I'm getting involved in something that aligns with like the seriousness or the level of seriousness in which I take like survival. You were not into the idea of having more or less just like, you know, bushcraft dorks on and aligning yourself with people that you did not feel were operating in earnest, in good faith, and with the intention of really bringing survival skills to the masses in a meaningful way. Or not even masses, just like on a one-to-one basis.
Anytime you're teaching.
Yeah, and you made it like real clear that like that was a hard line thing for you from the jump.
I won't do it.
The other reason, and I told you this, was there was in your show Dual Survival, there was at one point where your co-host was like, I'm going to drink my piss. And you go, don't do that. And he goes, I'm just going to do it. It's going to give me a mental edge. And you're like, don't drink your piss. That does not work. There is no good reason to do it. It will not give you a mental edge. It will lead to further dehydration. Go ahead if you want, I guess. But like, I really, really urge you not to do it. And the dude did fucking anyhow. And I don't remember if something bad happened to him because of it, or if like the show kind of resolved itself pretty shortly thereafter. Because sometimes it's like, you know, the last 5 minutes of the show, that's like what happens. And it's like, oh, there you cross the hill and like there's whatever team you're supposed to rendezvous with or whatever. But I remember seeing that. I haven't watched it recently, like years ago, like a decade ago. And I still remember that exact scene because I was like, look at that. That is somebody on a survival show who's not just going to do the stunt because, you know, it seems like what the salacious kind of like, he did that thing that people want to see. It's just, it was real. And I appreciate that. That's why I reached out to you first. And I got lucky. 1 for 1, dude.
Well, thanks. Because it is, you did a very good job of explaining that. And I actually had, I don't discuss contractual details a lot, but I will discuss this one. I had my entertainment attorney in my contract put in a non-disparagement clause. That didn't do me any good because they defame me anyway. That's a whole nother story I don't want to get into. But in that clause was that I wouldn't do anything that a producer asked me to do if I thought it would be harmful to the viewing public or it would be out of character as a professional survival instructor. I wouldn't fucking do it. And that was in writing in the contract. So whenever some harebrained producer, and there were several, there was some really good people I worked with and there was some really bad people I worked with. Normal, right? When they asked me or wanted me to do something, I'm immovable. I'm like, no. I mean, I just ended up losing my job over being immovable in my beliefs, in the integrity of my craft. And I could point to the contract. If they gave me shit twice, I said, look, man, it's in my contract. And then they would dead stop.
What kind of, like, can you give me an example of, and don't just say drinking your piss, but like, can you give me an example of something that like somebody might ask you to do that you'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah, hey, Cody, fall in that cold water.
Oh, really?
Or something. Or, hey, there was, you know, I don't want to say my co-host did all that stuff, but essentially They did that stuff out of not knowing better or whatever. I mean, I came into that show with 20 years of experience in my Aboriginal Living Skills School. 20 years. And you can Google the experience that others have had. And that was never meant to be a rotating cast of hosts. That you can Google all about that, what happened with the downfall of that show in multiple ways. But anytime someone is in control of something that they don't understand, dangerous things can happen. So when you have a network executive that has no idea what we're talking about in outdoor survival skills, that has a showrunner that has no idea, I'm going down the hierarchy here, that has no idea what we're talking about in survival skills, that has a field producer that has no idea what we're talking about with survival skills, that has a co-host that has no idea potentially what we're talking about, then you got a shitfest on your hands. So what my job for that was to be Cody and to teach the best that I could teach. And part of the job, unfortunately, was holding back this tide of bullshit with people that didn't know what they were doing. That I care about the viewers. I care about your viewers. I said I wouldn't come up here if this was going to be bullshit. Right. Because I have opted out of magazines. I've not done TV shows. I've stopped going to certain things because of association, because you're judged by the company you keep. Yeah. And I want to keep it clean as much as I can. So there was a lot of stress to push back on the media to try to keep it cleaner for the viewer when other people didn't give a damn about pushing back. They were, oh, okay, you want me to do this? That's their business.
They were into the TV show. You're into, like, not only are you're in a weird position because, one, you're now kind of being forced to act as a host. You're also being forced to act as like the de facto like stunt coordinator and like I guess, or anti-stunt coordinator, making sure that like, hey, look, I'm here to teach like survival stuff. And if you want to put yourselves in dangerous positions, like I can't let that happen because it's antithetical to the very thing that we're doing here. And not only that, but you're also responsible then for how viewers interpret what they're seeing on television. You know, they think that, oh, well, you know, so-and-so did like this river crossing in the middle of like, you know, early spring or whatever. That seems like something that I can do because like, you know, that's just part of surviving. It's like, no, it's not. Part of surviving is like finding like the big log jam a quarter mile upstream that you can safely and easily walk across and not put yourself in a horrible situation by drowning, hypothermia, anything like that.
It was a massive responsibility because I knew better and I wanted better. And we had some safety guys on set. They're great, all ex-military. But what the military does not do is do backcountry survival mitigation. That's like a really high echelon NOLS instructor, right? Or someone that'd be out of, you know, University of Montana or something that has been taking kids into the you know, the crazy mountains for 40 years. That's the kind of person you'd want as risk mitigator on a survival show. We're not guarding an embassy.
Right.
So there's this disconnect right off the back about let's put the military guy out in the woods because that's not true.
Right.
Not true, even though that was the premise of the show, right?
And there are certain like, you know, operators and shit that really do have like amazing skills. We're not saying that at all. We're just saying that in a pure survival thing where it's not like an offensive or defensive thing, it's just like a neutral maintenance thing. There are a lot of like skills that might be less sexy or less like interesting to like the general public that all of a sudden become like way paramount.
Once again, I don't teach anything as a military skill, and I've been teaching for more than 3 decades. Outdoor survival skills has nothing to do with the military. Zippo.
Well, what about like orienteering and stuff?
I'm not saying there's not overlap.
Okay.
But I'm saying we're not in the essence of military is offensive or defensive combat, right? We're not going to war in an outdoor survival situation. You might think you're in one with Mother Nature, but she doesn't care. She's neutral. She's not for you or against you.
She's pretty apathetic.
But you don't need to I don't know anything about teaching military stuff, but I teach outdoor survival skills. And I think the definition is important because you can define the definition. What I mean by that is one of the first things I would ask, because I'm now having people ask about, can I be on your podcast? And I'm like, okay, you can send me your resume and letters of recommendation. And you know what that does to most people, huh? I had some kids saying, you know, but we're just teaching survival skills. That was their answer to send me your professional resume. If you're a hobbyist, get the fuck out of my site. You don't go to a hobbyist physician. I'm really a plumber, but on weekends I do brain surgery. I find it so fascinating. I've learned a lot on YouTube videos, and now I want you under the knife. We're dealing with you and your family's safety. That's non-negotiable. My bullshit factor is about I have this much tolerance for this sort of thing. So by having a resume and calling yourself an outdoor survival instructor instead of a survivalist or adventurer or all these terms that the media uses that are undefinable, what is a survivalist? Well, they blow up federal buildings, according to some newspapers. They shoot cops, so the terminology matters. You have a university in this town of Bozeman. You go try to get a job at the outdoor apartment or outdoor. I'm sure they have an outdoor action department here.
Yeah, my wife actually happens to be the senior fitness coordinator there.
So she doesn't walk in by, you know, hey, I'd like to get a job.
Yeah.
Here, check out my YouTube videos.
Right. No.
They'd kick her out of the office.
She applied for the job. Coming from
she brought in to them.
Well, actually, it's even better. She was working at a CrossFit gym, managing a bunch of classes, like working real hard at the gym, in like an organizational sort of way, not just like personal training. She went there to try and get the job. They were like, no, we're going to, they went through a bunch of interviews. She didn't get the job. They didn't end up filling the position. Instead, they put her on as like an intern for something. And after she did her internship, during which she got her master's, then she got the job. And it's not that those things were like super, super related. But to your point, I mean, like, there is a lot of qualification that, well, that's what...
What?
Andrew's kind of a prepper.
I am not.
How many pounds of dried food do you have in your crawl space right now?
Yeah, hundreds.
Okay.
That's common sense, though.
Yeah. Well,
Not to a lot of people.
I want to hear. I would love to hear, Andrew, what your like kind of idea about like survival and this isn't like a preparedness like sort of thing. You're just in, well, it's literally preparedness sort of thing. You are in a different like category of interest where like part of it is like you genuinely want to be prepared for this shit. And like I've seen you dedicate a ton of time. He built this like, he has this cool cabin somewhere. And
Thank you. The more vague it is for him, the
Thank you.
I got you. And he built this like solar array for it. And like this like shed with houses these batteries, and it's kind of like self-heating. So the batteries don't get depleted in the winter. It's really, really amazing. I've seen it a bunch of times. But you also kind of like enjoy doing the stuff. Like it's
The way that I would describe it is I like being in control of the systems that make me safe, give me food, give me power, give me fuel, heat. I don't like delegating that responsibility to any system that I think could fail at any point.
why do you have that attitude?
Historically,
he's been
things
a
fail all the time.
techno-anarchist.
What?
Being a techno-anarchist.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, we haven't, necessarily seen it in the United States recently, but these things fail all the time,
Sure.
all the time. And I see it as a responsibility to kind of do what I can to mitigate that risk while I have the means to do it. And it is just kind of irresponsible to ignore it.
One more question for you. If you did not have a family, would you feel the same way?
I think I would, but I think most people wouldn't. I would because I grew up really, really poor, and I kind of have this scarcity mindset. Most people I imagine don't necessarily have that, but it would, it was magnified a lot when I had, when I got married and I have kids. So yeah, I mean, it was certainly magnified.
I think that's a pretty good take. I think like overarching, man, like that's about as solid as you're going to hear from somebody who's not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you think about that? Cause I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a prepper.
I just think you have common sense, and I'm interested. I think that, my grandparents grew up in the Depression. I'm not some old dude, but before they died, it's just when you really appreciate your grandparents, they're fucking dead. Yeah. Right. And all the questions one of my grandmas, I would ask her about the Depression, and she literally said, "Oh, honey, you don't want to talk about that." And I was like, "Grandma, I'm a survival instructor. I actually do want to talk." And all I could get out of her was, "Oh, just the cows bawling." She was in South Dakota, rural. Doesn't get much more back to the land than being in South Dakota in a rural farming community during the Depression. These people had all the tools at their disposal to do more with less, right? They grew up doing more with less, and it hit them hard. So I think being around my grandparents and hearing some of those stories about how shitty it was and how history repeats itself. And to be clear, I'm not a doomsdayer. I'm a glass half full guy. I'm trying to party on. I'm trying to keep people alive. But at the same time, if you look at Aesop's fables, I'm full on ant. There's a lot of grasshoppers out there, right? I'm going to come to Hayden's house when the shit hits the fan. He's got quail in the freezer in a big fat van, you know? So I'm into ants, because ants are the ones that, the reason, you know why the ants, they have tiny waist, don't you? Because they've tightened their belts so much so they can weather the storm of doing more with less and work together. Aesop's fable, The Grasshopper and the Ant, is, I have it in my second book as a reminder, we all need to be a little bit more ant-like and not, you know, you want to be more self-reliant. It makes sense. We're in a rural mountain community. It makes more sense. It has heavy mountain snowfall. It makes greater sense. You grew up poor. You've seen the shit side of that fence. You got a family now. It's just common sense. And what I don't like, and I'm happy to say on your podcast, is there's a lot of doomsday paranoid freaks out there. And we're not that. We're just dudes talking about wanting to feel more secure and confident with what, you know, the laws of nature and being responsible like we were this morning. You're trying to get protein, you know, so you don't have to go to the grocery store. How many mornings have two dudes and some dog/wolf/whatever have been out trying to get protein next to a pond in Montana? That's been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And only in the last generation or two have we become so divorced that people would look at me sideways for wanting to store food. Like that's such a weirdo thing. I have some pretty well-heeled clients that roll through. Mm-hmm. And they take, not necessarily probably to be prepared, they take it as something fun to do. And we've had some frank talks in the wilderness about they don't have a pot to piss in back at their house. They don't have more than 2 days worth of food, but they've got $7 million in Bitcoin. And I'm like, you need to think that one over. If I can wipe out your entire life savings by unplugging your computer, does that sound like a valid? And you can have all the cryptocurrency you want, but if you don't have meat in the freezer, you're fucking up.
Yeah, that always kind of cracked me up, though. I think that there is a big prepper movement where like people are just building like elaborate man caves, elaborate windowless.
I'm not against the preppy movie. If you'd have told my grandparents I'm a prepper, they would have just looked at you. It's like, honey, what do you, like, everyone was a prepper in South Dakota in the 30s and 40s because you wanted to do good by your own family and you wanted to be able to help your neighbor when the next blizzard hit, right? It's not rocket science. So this common sense, trying to do more with less, trying to be confident and be responsible for your family or whatever, has now been outsourced and social media sized to some movement of, you know, the paranoid doomsday freak. So I'm happy that people are prepping or whatever you want to call it. I just wish it was without the sensationalism, without he's a family man. He's doing what men have done with their family and women have done for generations and generations. But if you told that story to someone in an urban area on the east or west coast, they would think, oh, you watch them TV shows, huh? So of course, we're so out of touch. That's why I really appreciate you taking me duck hunting this morning. I'm out in nature a lot, obviously, but it was cool just to go back to that time where, you know, we're all just this close to that survival situation. We're all this close to not having ducks in the freezer. And it's such a blessing and a miracle. And it's such a feeling of gratitude when you get that duck and you can eat that and you did it yourself and you pluck the feathers yourself and you did the recipe yourself. And I think that we would feel more complete as people if we did more self-reliant skills, even the littlest thing. I think we would feel more grounded in who we are as a human species on this planet.
For sure. So it's not like, and I guess what I mean also is it's not really the dude with, oh, Boone. She asked me how I kept this dog here for the podcasts. You're like, do you like drug that dog? I'm like, nah, we just like.
I did say that. I felt bad.
And we just like run them a bunch. Yeah, it's not really the people who have hundreds of pounds of food in the crawl space like Andrew. It's more the people who are like, I'm going to build a turret on top of my cabin. You're like, hey man, maybe you should get some freeze dry first. Like maybe like you're starting at a crazy spot whereas like there are much more practical things that you can do to ensure safety.
The devil's always in the details.
Andrew has like some pretty heavy surveillance on this cabin, and him and I have a thing going right now where I'm going to take a buddy and try to break into his cabin at some point in time.
You're going to film it, right?
Well, I think we should. Well, hopefully, I mean...
GoPro on your head?
No, if Andrew's like shit works how he thinks it does, it will be filmed, you know, whether I know it or not. I made sure that there were no booby traps because it would not surprise me. And the other caveat was like, I need to be able to make it like $1,000 worth of damage. Because like I was like, I don't think I can break in without like I'm gonna have to break some shit. But we can talk about that later. If we do this, we got to film it because we were kind of joking but kind of serious. Anyhow, talking about practical measures. That's what you're all about, as we've discussed at length now. If people want to find more good tips like that, or if people want to pick your brain with their own annoying hypothetical scenarios.
Oh, God.
And or be subjected to the scenarios that you conjure up, where can they find you, Cody Lundin?
They can find me at codylundin.com. That's where my Aboriginal Living Skills School is, where I offer field courses in modern survival, primitive skills, and urban preparedness. They can find the Survival Show with Cody Lundin at thesurvivalshow.com. And fairly soon, they'll be able to listen to me answer questions just like yours on my podcast, Keep Your Ass Alive.
Oh, is it going to be like a call-in like kind of thing too?
Eventually it will be, yeah.
I'm going to be calling in.
Oh, God.
I'm going to be like, my buddy's stuck in Colorado.
We ran out of tape in the camera.
Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. It's been so much fun chatting with you and getting to duck hunt with you. And yeah, it's been a great time, man. Thank you for making the trip
Thank you,
out
Cody.
here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me up.
There's a desire to get back to the fundamentals of life. And I think that in the modern world, with all the conveniences that we're offered and can take advantage of, there's a sense of meaninglessness in life. What am I even doing? You know, why do I go through the motions of earning money and doing this whole thing? There's very few hardships, I think, for most modern Americans, most modern civilized countries. I think that the meaning of life is more and more difficult to pin down as life gets easier. And I'm hypothesizing, I don't know, I can't speak for my viewers, but I think that one of the reasons that so many people enjoy my videos is because it sort of helps them imagine themselves finding a simpler life and finding a life that consists of things that their efforts directly affect the outcome of their life. I chopped wood and now I'm warm. I built a cabin and now I have shelter. And those simple things that directly affect the quality of your life, I think is a great thing. And I think that a lot of people desire that. I think that depression and anxiety is obviously a big thing nowadays. And I think that it stems from a sense of sort of hopelessness and just being lost in a pretty modern and crazy and complicated world in ways that we can't necessarily actively affect and change. When everything is just readily available, we're not worried about starving to death. We're not worried about freezing to death. So what are we worried about? I think humans are great at thriving in the face of adversity, and we've been designed to do so. You know, for all of our generations up until 60, 70 years ago, actually just surviving the next day with food and shelter and water was a consideration and what we actively work towards. And now that's gone.